I started feeling it in my chest first. That tight sensation when something is wrong, but you cannot quite name it yet. 3 years I had been answering calls at this place, listening to frustrated people yell about their broken appliances, while I clicked through the same tired responses. The pay was barely enough, but it kept the lights on. Her name was Gretchen, our floor manager. She had this way of standing that made you feel small without her saying a word. On that Tuesday morning in March, she gathered all 12 of us near the water dispenser and made her announcement. You people waste 3 hours daily, every single one of you. So starting Monday, we are monitoring everything. Bathroom trips, water breaks, how long you stare at your phone, everything. She said it like we were thieves, like we were personally stealing from her wallet. I looked around at my teammates. Rolf had 2 kids and a wife recovering from surgery. B worked double shifts here and at a grocery place. None of us were wasting anything. We were surviving. Nobody argued, though. What could we say? Jobs were impossible to find that spring. Half the businesses on my street had closed. This was still better than nothing. I worked the morning shift, 8 to 4, handling the appliance complaints. Washing machines that flooded kitchens, refrigerators that stopped cooling, ovens that sparked. People called angry, and I did not blame them. I would be angry too. The following Monday, they installed everything, 89 devices. Gretchen walked around with a technician, pointing at different spots. Above our workstations, near the break area, by the restroom hallway. She kept saying it was for productivity metrics, response times, call durations, how fast we typed. This is how successful companies operate, she told us during the afternoon briefing. You will thank me when our numbers improve. My name is Cleo. I am 28 years old. I never finished college because my mom got sick and someone needed to help with bills. I am not special. I do not have important connections or fancy skills. I just show up and do the work. But I notice things. Always have. When I was younger, my mom used to say I could spot a crooked picture frame from across a room. She meant it as a joke, but she was right. Details stick with me. The first month with the new monitoring felt strange but manageable. We adjusted, started timing our bathroom breaks, ate faster, stopped chatting between calls. Gretchen would walk around with her laptop, glancing at whatever was on her display, nodding to herself like a teacher grading tests. Month 2 is when I started noticing her behavior shift. She would open her laptop during our shifts and just stare, not for a few seconds, for long stretches, 10 minutes, 15, 20. Her expression would change depending on what she was looking at. Sometimes her eyes would narrow, sometimes she would lean closer to the display. Once, I saw her zoom in on something. That was not someone checking productivity metrics. That was someone watching something else entirely. One afternoon in May, Gretchen walked past my workstation while I was finishing a call. Her laptop was angled just enough that I caught a glimpse of what was on her display. It was not showing our work areas. It was showing the small changing area near the back. Just a tiny closet with a mirror where 3 of us would fix our clothes after lunch if we spilled something or needed to adjust. My breathing went shallow. I finished my call on autopilot, my brain trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was a different feed. Maybe I misunderstood, but I could not shake it. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying that glimpse of her display, the angle, the location. It was definitely the changing area. The next day, I started paying closer attention, really paying attention, watching when Gretchen watched, noting which times she seemed most focused on her laptop. I could not see her display from my workstation, but I could see her face, the way she would bite her lower lip when she was concentrating, how she would adjust her position to get more comfortable for longer viewing sessions. During my break, I walked around our floor like I was stretching my legs. I counted the monitoring devices again, 89, just like she said. But their placements seemed odd now that I was looking with fresh eyes. Sure, some were pointed at workstations, but others were angled at the small kitchen area where people made instant noodles, at the wellness room where people went to take their medications in private, at the supply closet where you could make personal calls because it was the only spot without background noise from everyone talking. Why would productivity monitoring need views of those places? I felt sick, actually physically ill, but I could not tell anyone. Who would believe me? Gretchen was the manager. She had been with the company for 9 years. I was just a customer service representative who never finished college. If I accused her of something this serious without proof, I would be the one who got fired. So I stayed quiet. I watched her watch us. I started keeping notes at home on my personal device. Not at work, never at work. I would come home and write down what I had observed, the time she seemed most focused, which direction her laptop was angled, how long she stayed on certain feeds. June came. Then, July. The heat made our floor unbearable because the cooling barely worked. We were all exhausted. Rolf's wife had another surgery. Bee's second job cut her hours. A new guy named Terrence joined our team and quit after 9 days. Too stressful, he said. But I think he felt something was wrong with how Gretchen watched us. Most people could not name it. They just felt uncomfortable. I kept taking notes. The pattern was becoming clearer. Gretchen checked certain feeds more than others. The changing area, the wellness room, the small kitchen, when someone was alone. She barely looked at our actual workstations anymore. This was not about productivity. This had never been about productivity. 4 months in, I had enough observations to know I was not imagining things. But observations were not proof. I needed something concrete, something undeniable. The opportunity came in early August. I was working late on a Thursday because we were short-staffed. Gretchen had left for a meeting on the 3rd floor. She forgot to lock her laptop, just left it sitting there on the counter near the filing cabinets, display still active. I knew I had maybe 5 minutes before she came back. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely move. This was it. This was my chance. But if I got caught, I was finished. Not just fired, possibly prosecuted for accessing her device without permission. I looked around. Everyone else had gone home. Just me, on the floor. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. The building felt too quiet. I walked over to her laptop. The display showed exactly what I suspected. Multiple feeds. And she had been watching the wellness room. The timestamp showed she had been on that feed for 18 minutes. 18 minutes of watching someone in a private medical moment. I grabbed my phone and started capturing what I needed. Not photos. Something else. Something that would show her login credentials, the timestamps, the feeds she accessed most. My hands would not stop shaking. I kept glancing at the doorway, expecting her to appear any second. 3 minutes passed. 4. I got what I needed and moved back to my workstation just as I heard her footsteps in the hallway. She walked in, grabbed her laptop, and left without looking at me. I sat there trying to breathe normally, trying to look like nothing had happened, but everything had happened. I finally had what I needed. Before I continue further, thank you for listening to this. I know this sounds wild. I know it sounds like something that could not happen in real life, but it did happen. It happened to me and 11 other people who just wanted to work and pay our bills. If you are listening from somewhere right now, I want you to know this story is for everyone who has ever felt watched, ever felt violated, ever felt powerless. Drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from. It helps me know I am not alone in this, that we are not alone in this. Now back to the story. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. I had the proof, but what was I supposed to do with it? Going to human resources felt pointless. They would tell Gretchen. She would delete everything and I would be fired for making false accusations. Going to the authorities felt equally impossible. What law had she broken? I did not know. I was not a lawyer. So I waited, and I planned, and I kept watching her watch us, knowing what she was really doing, feeling more disgusted every single day. Then September arrived. With it came the annual board presentation. Every year, the company held this big presentation where department heads showed their results to the board. 15 senior leaders would fly in from different regions. It was treated like this huge deal. People prepared for weeks. Gretchen had been talking about it since July, how she was going to showcase her monitoring initiative, how the numbers proved her system worked, how she was going to demonstrate the return on investment. She practiced her presentation during our lunch breaks, made us sit there and watch her slides while we tried to eat, graphs showing decreased break times, charts showing increased call completion rates, data showing we were spending less time away from our workstations. This is going to change how the entire company operates, she told us. One afternoon, other departments will adopt this. I might even get promoted to regional oversight. She was proud, actually proud of what she had built. That made it worse somehow. The presentation was scheduled for September 14th, a Wednesday. They booked the large gathering space on the ground floor. the one with the tall windows and the projector system that cost more than I made in a year. I requested that day off 2 weeks in advance, told them I had a dental appointment. They approved it. Then, 3 days before the presentation, I sent an email to the executive assistant who coordinated the board meeting. Said I was a customer service representative who had insights about the monitoring system that the board might find valuable. Asked if I could attend as an observer. She replied within an hour. Said observers were not typically allowed, but given the topic relevance, she would add me to the attendance list. Just sit in the back and do not disrupt. I could barely eat for those 3 days. Barely slept. I kept running through what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, what could go wrong. Everything could go wrong. Tuesday night, I did not sleep at all. Just lay there staring at my ceiling, thinking about Rolf's kids, about Bia working herself into exhaustion, about that new guy Terrence who quit after 9 days because he felt something was wrong, about every person who had used the wellness room or the changing area or the kitchen, not knowing they were being watched like that. Wednesday morning, I put on the nicest outfit I owned, a plain button-up and dark pants, nothing fancy. I looked like I was going to a funeral. Maybe I was. Maybe this was the funeral for my job, my income, my ability to pay rent. I arrived at the building at 8:30. The presentation was not until 9:15, but I wanted to be there early, needed to settle my nerves. The gathering space was already filling up. 15 board members in their expensive clothes, department heads from different regions, some assistants, the executive team, and Gretchen. Standing near the front, organizing her notes, checking her laptop, she looked confident, comfortable, like someone about to receive praise. She saw me walk in. Her expression shifted to confusion, then annoyance. "What are you doing here?" she asked, walking over to where I stood near the back. "I was invited," I said quietly, "as an observer. Observers were not approved for this." "Check with Rita," I said, naming the executive assistant. She added me to the list. Gretchen looked like she wanted to argue, but people were taking their seats. She could not make a scene. Not now, not in front of the board. She walked back to the front, but kept glancing at me. Suspicious. The presentation started at 9:20, 5 minutes late because one of the board members had trouble with traffic. The chief executive opened with some remarks about company performance, then introduced the agenda. 5 presentations from different departments. Gretchen was third. I sat through the first 2 presentations, barely hearing anything. My heart was beating so loud I thought people around me could hear it. My palms were sweating. I had my phone in my pocket with everything I needed already loaded, ready to go, but I kept thinking about backing out, just leaving, pretending I never saw anything. Then Gretchen was introduced. She walked to the front, connected her laptop to the projector. Her first slide appeared on the large display behind her. Productivity enhancement through comprehensive monitoring. She talked for 12 minutes, showed her graphs, her charts, her data. The board members were nodding, taking notes. One of them asked about implementation costs. Another asked about employee pushback. Gretchen answered smoothly, confidently. The initial resistance was minimal, she said. Once staff understood this was about helping them improve, most embraced it. That was a lie. Nobody had embraced it. We had tolerated it because we needed our jobs. She continued, showed more slides, more numbers, talked about expanding the system, about rolling it out to other departments, about making it company-wide. "Any questions?" she asked, looking at the board members. A few hands went up. Standard questions about technical specifications, about data storage, about privacy compliance. Gretchen answered each one, still confident, still comfortable. Then she asked again, "Any other questions?" I raised my hand. She saw me. Her expression hardened. She clearly did not want to acknowledge me, but the chief executive had noticed my hand too. "Yes?" he said, looking at me. "You have a question?" I stood up. My legs felt unstable. "I have something that shows the real impact of this monitoring system." The room shifted. People turned to look at me. Gretchen's face went pale. "I am sorry," she said quickly, "but this is a board presentation. Observers are not permitted to." "Let her speak," the chief executive interrupted. He looked curious now. "You said you have something to show us?" I nodded, pulled out my phone, walked toward the front. Each step felt like moving through water. Gretchen was staring at me with an expression I had never seen before, fear mixed with rage. "This will just take 12 seconds," I said. I connected my phone to the projector system, the same system Gretchen had just used for her presentation. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the connector twice. But I got it. The large display behind me switched from Gretchen's slides to what I had captured. 12 seconds of her laptop activity. The timestamp in the corner showing the date and time. Her login credentials visible at the top. And the feed she was watching. The wellness room. Someone clearly in a private medical moment. The zoom function showing she had enlarged the view. The duration counter showing she had been watching for 18 minutes. 12 seconds. That was all it took. The room went completely still. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the space. Then the chief executive stood up. "What is this?" Gretchen tried to speak. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked at the display, at the board members, at me, back to the display. "That is not," she started. "I was not. That is your login credentials," I said quietly. My voice was shaking but clear. "That is your access. That is what you were watching. Not productivity metrics. Not work performance. That." For 18 minutes, one of the board members, an older woman named Iris, stood up. She looked furious. How many of these feeds were positioned in private areas? I looked at her. Multiple. The changing area, the wellness room, the small kitchen, the supply closet, places where people went because they thought they had privacy. Another board member stood. Then another. They were all looking at Gretchen now. She had backed up against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. Her voice had gone high and thin. Those feeds were part of the comprehensive monitoring. I was just checking. "For 18 minutes? Iris interrupted. "You were checking for 18 minutes? Gretchen had no answer. What answer could there be? The chief executive looked at someone near the door. "Get legal. Now. And security." The next hour happened in fragments. Security arrived. Gretchen was escorted out. Not gently. The board went into a closed session. I was asked to wait outside. Someone brought me water. I could not drink it. My hands were still shaking too badly. Rita, the executive assistant, sat with me. She did not say much, just sat there. At one point she said, "You were very brave." I did not feel brave. I felt like I was going to pass out. At 11:45, I was called back in. Just the chief executive and Iris. They asked me questions for 20 minutes. How long had I noticed this behavior? Had I told anyone? Did I have other evidence? Had Gretchen ever said anything inappropriate? I answered everything honestly, showed them the notes I had kept at home, the observations, the patterns. When I finished, Iris looked at the chief executive. "We need to contact everyone on that floor. Inform them immediately. Legal exposure is substantial." He nodded, then looked at me. "Gretchen has been terminated, effective immediately. We are launching a full investigation. Every device will be removed by end of business today." I just nodded, could not form words. "You should know," Iris added, "that 3 of your colleagues have already contacted legal counsel. This is going to be complicated." They dismissed me at 12:30. I walked out of that building into the September afternoon and just stood there on the sidewalk. People walked past me. Traffic moved. The world continued like nothing had happened, but everything had happened. I went home, sat on my couch, stared at nothing. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Bea from work. "Cleo," she said. Her voice was crying. "They just told us. They told us everything. About Gretchen, about what she was doing, about you." "I am sorry," I said. Did not know why I was apologizing. "Sorry? Cleo, you stopped her. You actually stopped her. We talked for an hour. Then Rolf called. Then others. Everyone from our floor. Some crying. Some angry. Some just silent on the other end of the line. Processing. By evening, I learned that Gretchen had not just been terminated. An investigation had been launched. Legal authorities were involved. The company had hired an outside firm to examine everything. Every feed, every timestamp, every access log. Within 48 hours, every single monitoring device was gone. All 89 of them. Removed like they had never existed. The company sent out a formal apology to our entire department, offered counseling services, revised their monitoring policies company-wide. 3 of my colleagues filed lawsuits. I understood why. What Gretchen had done was not just wrong. It was a violation that could not be fixed with apologies or policy changes. I did not file a lawsuit. Some people asked me why. My answer was simple. I did not want to spend the next 2 years reliving this in depositions and courtrooms. I wanted to move forward. That was my choice. Others made different choices. Both were valid. October brought changes I was not expecting. The chief executive called me into his office. Not the gathering space, his actual office on the 7th floor. I had never been up there before. It smelled like expensive coffee and leather furniture that probably cost more than my entire apartment. "Sit down, Cleo," he said. He was older, maybe late 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. "I want to talk about what happens next." I sat, waited. My stomach was tight. "First, I want to apologize," he said. "Not on behalf of the company. Personally, from me. What happened to you and your colleagues should never have occurred. We failed in our oversight. We trusted the wrong person. That failure is on leadership. It is on me." I did not know what to say, so I said nothing. "Second, I want you to know that Gretchen will face consequences beyond termination. The investigation has uncovered evidence that what she did may constitute criminal violations. That is being handled by authorities now." I nodded slowly. Part of me felt relief. Part of me felt nothing. I was so tired. "Third," he continued, "we need to fill the floor manager position for your department. We want to promote from within. Someone who understands what that team has been through. Someone they trust." He was looking at me, really looking at me. "You want me to be the manager?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "I want you to consider it. You showed courage, integrity, leadership when it mattered most. Those are not common qualities." I thought about it for maybe 5 seconds. Then I said, "No." He looked surprised. "No? I appreciate it," I said carefully. "I really do. But I do not want to be anyone's manager. I do not want that kind of power over people. Not after what I saw someone do with it." He leaned back in his seat, studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I understand. That is fair. But I want to offer you something else then. A position in our ethics and compliance department. We are building out that team. We need people who understand what happens when systems fail, when oversight fails. People who will speak up. Would you consider that?" That felt different. Better. "Can I think about it?" "Take your time," he said. "The offer stays open." I left his office feeling strange. Like I had stepped into someone else's life. This was not supposed to happen to people like me. I was supposed to just keep my head down and survive. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. But things had changed. I had changed. November came cold and gray. 3 months since the board presentation. The lawsuits were moving forward. The company had settled with one colleague already. The terms were confidential, but word got around that it was substantial. Substantial enough that she quit and moved to a different city. Started over, somewhere new. I stayed, kept working customer service, answering calls about broken appliances, but something was different now. People treated me differently, some with respect, some with suspicion, like I was someone who could not be trusted with secrets anymore. B was one of the few who stayed normal around me. We had lunch together most days. She had quit her second job finally, could afford to now. The company had given our entire department raises. Guilt money, she called it. But money was money. "You ever regret it?" she asked me one afternoon in late November. We were eating sandwiches from the place across the street, the cheap place with the good bread. "Regret what?" I asked. "Speaking up, doing what you did. Your life would be simpler if you had just stayed quiet." I thought about that, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I do not regret it. My life would be simpler, but I would not be able to live with myself. Does that make sense?" She nodded. "Yeah, it does." December arrived. The holidays were coming. The building was decorated with lights and fake snow that was supposed to look cheerful, but mostly just looked sad. People were planning parties and time off, talking about family visits and travel. I was planning something else. I had made my decision about the job offer. On December 9th, I accepted the position in ethics and compliance. Started in January. Different floor, different responsibilities, same building. When I told my team during our last shift together before I transitioned, they were happy for me. Most of them. A few seemed hurt that I was leaving. Rolf looked like he might cry. You are going to do good things there, he said. Make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else. I am going to try, I said. My last day in customer service was December 20th. People brought in snacks. Someone made a small cake. It was nice. Awkward, but nice. B pulled me aside near the end of the shift. You know what you did was insane, right? She said. Like genuinely insane. You risked everything. I know, I said. But I am glad you did it. We all are. Even the people who act weird around you now. They are glad. They just do not know how to say it. We hugged. She smelled like vanilla lotion and instant coffee. Smelled like the last 3 years of my life. January brought the new position. New desk on the 4th floor. New responsibilities. I was part of a team that reviewed company policies, investigated complaints, made recommendations to leadership about ethical practices. It was strange work, harder than I expected, not physically, mentally, emotionally. I sat in meetings where people talked about risk management and liability exposure and legal frameworks. Sometimes I wanted to scream that they were talking about human beings, people with lives, people who trusted their employers not to violate them. But I did not scream. I learned the language, learned how to translate my anger and my experience into terms that made executives listen, learned that changing systems required patience and strategy and persistence. February brought news that Gretchen had been charged, multiple criminal counts related to privacy violations. The trial was scheduled for August. I would probably have to testify. My lawyer said to prepare for that. I was preparing. March brought spring, warmer days, longer light. The building felt different somehow. Or maybe I felt different. I was sleeping better, eating better, had started going to counseling. The company paid for it. Least they could do, my counselor said. One afternoon in late March, I was working at my desk when I got an email from someone I did not recognize. The subject line said, "Thank you from someone at the Western branch." I opened it. "Hi, Cleo. My name is Jada. I work in customer service at the Western Regional Office. I heard about what you did, about what happened with your manager. I just wanted you to know that it mattered. Our management was planning to implement a similar monitoring system here. After what happened at your location, they canceled it. You probably saved a lot of people from going through what you went through. I know you do not know me, but thank you. Really, thank you." I read that email 3 times, then saved it in a folder I created called Reasons. April brought more emails, more messages from people across the company, people I had never met, thanking me, telling me their own stories about times they stayed quiet, times they wished they had spoken up, times they were glad someone else had. I answered every single one. It took hours, but it felt important. May brought the 1-year mark since I first noticed what Gretchen was really doing with those feeds. 1 year since my stomach first turned when I glimpsed her display. 1 year since I started taking notes at home. I did not celebrate, did not mark it in any special way, just noted it, acknowledged it, moved forward. June brought a company-wide policy change. New guidelines about workplace monitoring, new oversight requirements, new protections for employees. I had worked on those policies. My fingerprints were all over them. Not just mine, the whole ethics team. But I had contributed. That meant something. July brought preparation for the trial, meeting with prosecutors, reviewing evidence, going over testimony. It was exhausting, but necessary. August brought the trial itself. 5 days of sitting in a courtroom, listening to technical testimony about feeds and access logs and timestamps. Listening to my colleagues describe how they felt when they learned they had been watched, how violated, how angry, how betrayed. I testified on day 3, answered questions for 2 hours. The defense attorney tried to make me seem vindictive, like I had a personal grudge against Gretchen, like I wanted attention. But the evidence was clear. The timestamps were clear. What she had done was undeniable. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, found her guilty on multiple counts. Sentencing was scheduled for October. I did not feel victorious when the verdict was read. I felt tired, just deeply, completely tired. September brought distance. Time to breathe, time to process. I took a week off work, went to visit my mom. She was doing better, had been in remission for 2 years now. We sat on her back porch and drank tea and did not talk about work or trials or any of it, just sat together. "You did good," she said one evening. "I am proud of you." That was enough. October brought the sentencing. Gretchen got 18 months, plus fines, plus probation after release. It was not enough for some people. It was too much for others. For me, it was what it was. Justice is complicated, imperfect, but it was something. Now it is December again. A full year and 3 months since the board presentation. Since I stood up in that gathering space and showed 12 seconds that changed everything. People still ask me if it was worth it, if I would do it again. My answer is always the same. Yes, because staying silent would have destroyed something in me. Some part of myself I could not get back. I still work in ethics and compliance. Still answer emails from employees with concerns. Still sit in meetings and push for better policies. It is not glamorous work. Nobody writes news stories about policy revisions or oversight committees, but it matters. The people from my old team are doing okay. Most of them. Rolf's wife is healthy now. B bought a small house. Others moved on to different jobs, different lives. We still message sometimes. Check in. Life is not perfect now. I still have hard days. Still wake up sometimes thinking about those 4 months I watched Gretchen watch us. Still get angry about what she did, what she stole from people who just wanted to work and pay their bills and be left alone. But I sleep better now. I look at myself different in the mirror. I know what I am capable of, not just capable of enduring, capable of fighting back, of speaking up, of being brave when bravery was required. That knowledge changed me, made me someone I did not know I could be. And if I could go back to that Tuesday in March when Gretchen first announced the monitoring system, knowing everything that would happen, all the fear and risk and exhaustion and pain, would I still choose to speak up? Yes. Every single time. Yes. Thank you for listening to my story, all the way to the end. I know it was long. I know it was heavy, but these stories matter. The ones where ordinary people face impossible situations and find the courage to do what is right anyway. If this story connected with you, if it reminded you of your own moments of courage, or times you wish you had spoken up, leave a comment below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Real stories. True stories about people who refuse to stay silent, because that is how we change things. One voice at a time. One person willing to stand up. One 12-second clip that exposes the truth. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are braver than you think you are.